Good evening. Good evening. I am so glad to see so many people here tonight. My name is Anna Newton. I'm with the Act for the Earth Community Outreach Ministry team, and we are thrilled to have someone very special with us here tonight. Um, Before I set her loose, I just want to share some thoughts with you because on Friday morning, the steering committee for Act for the Earth met. And we were processing all of the events of this week. It was really hard. Some of us said, the only way I can get through this is to meditate. Someone else said, well, she was with a group of people on a signal chat and they were out patrolling their neighborhood. It just went on and on and on. And one of the questions that came up was, with all the work that our group has done around food and agriculture and all this stuff, does it even matter? I mean, Secretary of Health has turned our food pyramid upside down. You know, does it, does this work even matter? And I went home. Well, actually, I went for a walk after that. But that afternoon, I came over here to church to work in the kitchen and help Heidi prep some Wellspring Wednesday meals. The next two Wednesdays are pretty much done, by the way. There's a good crew in the kitchen. And I have to tell you, it made a difference. I was with a group of people. We were talking, we were laughing. Heidi was shouting directions. She's really good at it. Um, but my point is just cooking and feeding people is really important. And when I first reached out to Beth Dooley, let's see if I can get my phone to work here, she had a final sentence in her email, and I'm going to quote her here. She says, cooking is an intimate and immediate way to connect with the natural world and each other. When I'm hungry for hope, I cook and share good food. Here, here. Beth Dooley is to my right. I'm going to leave her to do her thing up here. She tells me she's going to do some storytelling. So this will be really special. Oh, one more thing before you get to talk. Um, our friend Andrea Martin, who is on our food team, has brought a selection of cookbooks. So if you're interested particularly in vegetarian or vegan cooking, there's some resources there. I would suggest that you leaf through the books and take a picture of anything you're interested in, and then you know where to go to get your books. Do you want to hold up the one about the kitchen, the one in the front row in the middle? No, no, yeah, that one. Um, this one is intriguing because it's kind of a Buddhist approach to cooking and setting up your kitchen. So if you're interested, that's a little different. It's not recipes. I was shocked when I got it and it wasn't recipes, um, but yeah, I said, is this the right one? Is this the right book? But anyway, it's really interesting. But help yourself to look at the books. Maybe when we're done, we'll should have a little bit of time. Um, and at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Beth. Why don't you give her a big round of applause?
You might want to wait until until you hear what I have to say before you start applauding. Thank you so much for being here. And you have to admit, it feels good to be in a shared space like this and share a beautiful meal like the one we just had. Thank you, Heidi. The food was great. Um, and to celebrate plants. It just seems so right now, and to celebrate each other. And I think I'm an expat. I moved here from New Jersey years ago, and I love Minneapolis. I love Minnesota. And I'm reminded of the story in that book, Let Goodness Happen Here. Are you guys familiar with the book? Actually, it's the story of this little town in France where the minister told everyone they could harbor refugees from the concentration camps as they were escaping. And he said the thing to do, because the Nazis will come through here looking for these people, hide them in your attic, hide them in your basement, hide them in your closets. But when the Nazis storm in, offer them something to eat. Offer them coffee, welcome them in, give them cookies. And actually, the daughter of that minister ended up becoming a Carmelite nun at St. Catherine's. And she's spoken quite a lot about her experience with that. I don't think she's still alive. But then I heard another story the other day about a woman who was, she and her friend were carrying around a pot of herbal tea and offering, on one of those really cold days, offering herbal tea to both the protesters who were shouting, really angry at the ICE marshals and stuff, and offering tea to the ICE agents as well. And it was really interesting. I think it just changed the tone of everything. Um, and so I thought, those are stories that I can bring forward, but I thought I'd tell my own story um, about what's happening around food sovereignty and around the work that the University of Minnesota is doing and many of our farmers are doing to connect us to our food and the natural world in a more significant way through cooking. It's I just thought I just want to tell a story. We're all we just need to be together around stories. Um, it starts with a quote, and it's the introduction to a manuscript I'm working on right now that's going to be called In Summer's Kitchen, which follows In Winter's Kitchen, which came out about 10 years ago. And so it starts with this: food tells our story, both personal and collective. It tells the history of migration and conquest, of wisdom and hubris, of survival, of celebration. It tells our story long after we're gone. As I write this from the porch of our family cottage on Lake Superior, a blueberry pie cools on the counter and ratatouille simmers on the stove. For most of my adult life, I've been the sole cook in the Dooley household. But the blueberries I picked this morning inspired Allie, my son Kip's wife, to make the buttery, flaky pie crust she learned as a child from her Grammy Margot. Kip harvested the tomatoes, eggplant, zucchini, and garlic from the Madeline Island Community Garden and promptly shooed me back to the porch when I tried to begin chopping them for the ratatouille. "Mom, I know how to do it," he said. 7 words all mothers must eventually, if grudgingly, learn to accept. I've been coming to this island for nearly 40 years. It's the ancestral homeland of the Anishinaabe or Ojibwe people who came here over 500 years ago in search of a prophesied land where food grows on water. The wild rice they harvested in the lakes and sloughs of this region, along with maple sugar, fish, and animal pelts, became the basis of their civilization, and later the lucrative trade networks that fueled the French, English, and U.S. empires. The island's clear air, cool nights, thick forests of pine and maple, and wide views of the majestic lake still the heart and quicken the mind, and most important of all, stir the appetite. Our cottage was built in 1903 as part of a retreat for Congregationalist ministers. The cooking back then was usually done in a separate building that multiple summer households called the summer kitchen. It was here, away from the commotion of family, that cooks set to their work during the quiet morning hours before the heat of the day. I've come to think of this cottage as my own summer kitchen, a space apart from ordinary time and the busyness of city life, where I can more fully immerse myself in the daily rituals of preparing, sharing, and learning about food. It's both a retreat and a classroom, where as a mom, cook, and food writer, I've learned my lessons about how my choices impact this great lake, its wildlife, and my neighbors. It's where I've been fortunate to connect with Indigenous neighbors and find simple ways to support a burgeoning movement to restore Native peoples' rightful place on their sacred land. And it's where I've watched my sons, the carriers of my legacy, play, grow, and deepen their connection to land and to food. As I close in on the final chapter of my working life, I'm thinking of what I want to leave behind. While I'm proud of the many books and articles I've written, I've long given up any illusion that my words will be studied or savored for generations to come. I'm no Robin Wall Kimmerer or MFA Fisher, and that's okay. There's a dawning sense within me, strange, familiar, and quietly thrilling, that my legacy will have to do instead with soil. It's a bit humbling to come to this conclusion, not to mention perplexing, given our own antagonistic relationship with soil. We work hard to keep our hands and homes free of it, sweeping and mopping and spraying away any trace of the stuff our food grows in. Yet soil is life. Just 1 teaspoon of backyard dirt contains billions of organisms as alive as you or me or any animal with whom we share this planet. Consider that the Latin term humus, the linguistic root of human, literally means soil. In Hebrew, a root language of our Judeo-Christian culture, Adam, the word for person or man, is derived from Adama, soil, earth. For the past 60 years, in the US at least, the study of soil has been cordoned off in the natural sciences. My own entry into this topic is a less detached and precise domain, that of cooking. The stories I offer here in the forthcoming book, contextualized by research of scientists and the diligent and often thankless work of farmers and growers, flows from my own personal experience of preparing food and gathering people to share meals. I have little new to say about big picture policy solutions, but lots to share with the curious home cook who wishes to find a deeper sense of connection to the land and to others while doing their own small part to build a healthier collective future. Western science has long treated soil as just another lifeless input in the machine of nature, measuring its value by numbers and output. Seed and fertilizer companies, with the full support of the U.S. government, have made spraying chemical fertilizer, continuous tilling, and large-scale monocropping of corn and soy the norm in agriculture. North America's soil, which was once some of the most nutrient-rich in the world, has suffered greatly for it. According to a 2022 study, the upper Midwest is losing valuable topsoil at the rate of 1.9 millimeters per year, which sounds minuscule to the human world of meters and miles, but which is seismic in the realm of land. Amid the, as the late Don Wise, the founder of the Forever Green Initiative, said, our land is losing its living cover. Soil is to land what skin is to humans. Without the land's nutrients are washed into streams and eventually rivers like the Mississippi that flow to the ocean. We like to think of the Northern Heartland as America's breadbasket, but one of our greatest exports, ecologically speaking, is phosphorus and nitrogen from chemical fertilizers that washes into the Gulf of Mexico, creating the infamous dead zone, nearly 8,000 square mile stretch of coastline where underwater life has ceased to exist. Only recently has Western science begun to catch up with the indigenous cultures that have known for thousands of years that the way we tend our soil has a profound and far-reaching effects, not just on crop output, but on entire ecosystems of human and environmental health. Complex and ever unfolding traditional ecological knowledge, or TEK, brings to light just how profoundly we need to change how we tend our land, grow our food, and conceptualize and build community. Technology alone will not solve the climate crisis, and our fixation on the West's bright light of progress is in part what drives it. Solutions to the many interlocking political and ecological crises we now face must be grown by reestablishing relationship. Soil, composed of complex and interlocking interactions between plants, microbes, insects, and countless other species, is the perfect guide and metaphor for the journey. The act of cooking is a key nutrient in my own soil. As lucky as I am to write about food, farms, and chefs for a living, it's when someone asks me, what's for dinner, that I truly come alive. I close my laptop, head to the stove, and merrily chop and simmer, for food is no longer words on the screen, but an aromatic and sensual experience, a creative expression of the earth's unrequited gifts that I get to share with family and friends. A farmer once told me that as he packs produce each week for his CSAs, he pictures the faces of the families who will receive it. And a cheesemaker friend does not permit me or anyone else to smooth the curds after scooping them into their form. I need to give each wheel a blessing. Such ritual acts name and affirm the invisible lattice work of energetic relationships between all beings that make up a food system animals, microbes, humans, plants, rocks, water. Our ability to respond to the climate crisis depends not just on our technological ingenuity, but on the quality of these relationships, the soil from which we feel, think, and take actions, not as masters of the earth and its creatures, but as her siblings, her partners, and her children. Amid COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns, political violence, and extreme weather, gardening, sourcing, and cooking local food feel both more urgent and pleasurable. Faced with restaurant shutdowns, school closings, supply chain disruptions, boredoms, loneliness, anxiety, and the desire to do something useful, many of us have been cooking at home much more often since March of 2020. The value of food is becoming more evident. As much as I prefer cooking with others in person, it's thanks actually to the internet that Kip, my son, and I began cooking together more often. We started with a simple phone call during the early stages of the COVID lockdowns. I don't have anything to eat, he said. His refrigerator was nearly empty, his cabinet stocked with just a few staples. The nearby market, its inventory already skimpy, had closed for the night. What he had was butter, garlic, a rind of Parmesan cheese, a box of spaghetti, a lemon, and half a bottle of Chardonnay. At our separate stoves, we sizzled that butter in a saucepan until it turned a nutty brown, added a few cloves of smashed garlic, and a splash of wine. We boiled the spaghetti until al dente and poured some of its cooking water into the brown butter. Then tangled the pasta into this simple sauce with freshly ground black pepper, a pinch of hot pepper flakes, a squeeze of lemon, and some grated parm. No masterpiece, but worthy of what was left of the wine that we sipped as we ate and shared mundane details from the day and pondered the fate of the world. This soon became our weekly ritual. Kip, a writer and editor himself, proposed we start a newsletter, Bare Bones Cooking, which became our workshop, a place to experiment with ideas and recipes and language that wouldn't fit into a cookbook, an op-ed, or an impact report. It was a way to be together. In the summer of 2020, we launched our first online class, which was to become a community of curious home cooks, young and old, learning together how to make simple, healthy meals that bring us into the harmony with the cycle of the seasons. Creating and teaching this class has helped me articulate the foundational techniques I've learned from the many chefs I've written cookbooks with, which have served countless cooks across generations and cultures, and it's helped me share in a more direct way why cooking with local seasonal foods matters and explore the paradoxical and life-giving practice of connecting with the collective through one's own unique terroir, community, family, palate, and body. We know that our industrial food system, with its fixation on growing corn and soybeans for animal feed and cheap processed food, destroys the soil and keeps the power in the hands of a small group of already wealthy farmers and a few corporations whose leaders value short-term profit over life, both human and otherwise. This system of relentless extraction emerged and was perhaps an inevitable outcome of the long history of European civilization, enslavement, and genocide in the Americas. Any clear-eyed analysis of where we go from here must start from this point, lest we continuously repeat the harms of the past and the present. That said, I don't believe that shunning my own European ancestors and cultures wholesale is a healthy response. It's important to understand that many European settlers had been stripped of their own connection to the Earth's cycle long before they came to these shores. Indeed, a key template for colonization in the Americas was forced through a process called land enclosure, which from the 14th to 17th centuries in history in England and Ireland transformed public, commonly held lands into private plots that the wealthy could exploit as a private asset. Lands that the common people had farmed, hunted, and fished for centuries became sites of relentless extraction, whereby landlords and merchants harvested as much grain and wool as possible to trade for tea, sugar, and spices, which had in turn been grown and harvested by enslaved African and indigenous people in the increasingly global marketplace. Many European settlers came to the Americas on the promise of free, abundant farmland that could replace what they had lost, and in seizing on the opportunity given to them by the governments of Europe and later in the United States, they wittingly or unwittingly participated in the dislocation and genocide of the continent's many indigenous peoples and the widespread destruction of its once thriving ecosystems. While the benefits these settlers enjoyed were many, they were also subjected to a process of cultural disinheritance that afforded them and their descendants the advantages of U.S. citizenship and whiteness at the expense of healthy relations with other people and the land. In fact, my own grandmother, my grandmother Flower, who nurtured my love of cooking in her suburban and seaside New Jersey kitchens, attempted to erase her own German heritage, presumably to avoid stigmatization during World War I. I can only imagine how much richer the lessons she passed on to me could have been had she maintained her German roots. Her interest in genealogy proved skin deep, extending only to her husband's English and Scottish ancestors who purportedly had ties to Patrick Henry of the American Revolution. Her years and years of searching turned up more than a book's worth of faded family trees, but much to her chagrin, no ties to Patrick Henry. Census records and a single album of photographs from her childhood are all the evidence that remain of her German American upbringing, along with a few apocryphal details passed down from my own mother, now deceased. The root cellar where her aunties, Emmy and Odie, stored potatoes and beets for winter, the slippery elm bark they used to make tea, and the birch bark beer they brewed on a wood-fired stove. My own imagination must fill in the rest. The Northern Heartland, my home now, hosts a rich inheritance of European folk traditions just like these, many of which would now fall under regenerative or sustainable. Early settler farmers planted acres of diverse grains, heritage varieties of wheat, rye, oats, buckwheat, and barley, berry bushes and hazelnuts, apple, cherry, plum, and pear trees, beans, peas, tomatoes, eggplant, squash, cucumbers, radishes, turnips, potatoes, carrots, plus herbs, all of which provided throughout the year the precious living cover Don Wise preached. The trees and bushes especially provided forage and shelter for wildlife, pollinators, and friendly pests. Animals grazed on pasture, turning up soil with their hooves and providing valuable nutrients in the form of manure. It's my contention that much of our work today as European descended people lies in reclaiming the wisdom of our own ancestral cultures while learning from and sharing with indigenous people. In this exchange, there's hope that we might restore our connection with the Earth's natural cycles and establish patterns of relating with the Earth and other peoples that will set our descendants on a better path than the ones we have come from. So, what I write about is this experimental journey of reconnection and regeneration. Um, I've walked with my family through fields with farmers and plant researchers testing ways to grow food at a scale that not only avoids further harm, but revitalizes our once vibrant prairies. You know, in visits to restaurants and gardens and community centers, chefs, farmers, and teachers advocate to represent the rich ethnic diversity of our region, and they're weaving the ancient wisdom of their cultures with our modern technology. And I think that's so important. The work our universities are doing right now to remediate a lot of the damage that's been done is huge. Um, you know, the growing season here is only about 6 weeks long, right? But you have to agree that it was pretty amazing. We had this dinner tonight that consisted mostly of local roots, right, with the beautiful miso sauce. Um, and that was all a local harvest. There's a lot of food I learned when I worked with Sean Sherman that we step over every day. I think, you know, we can grow locally and sustainably far more than we're doing now, and we're seeing that change begin to happen. So even as I grieve for what we've done to one another and to the earth, even as I fear the upheavals and calamities my children and grandchildren will surely face, I cannot help but rejoice each time I come back to my summer kitchen and see my sons and their partners washing and chopping and simmering what they've grown and pulled from this soil. Come on, let's sink our hands back into the ground and cook more and eat more together. So thank you very much for paying attention. And I would love for this to launch a discussion about, ways that you're finding to nurture yourself and your friends and each other, and to connect, the different ways through this really sensorial work, through our humanness, to um, to kind of pay attention. Because I know there's a lot of talk about how do we resist, how do we take care of ourselves, how do we take care of each other. But I also think that showing up here tonight and cooking tonight and sharing these stories is an act of resistance in and of itself. So thanks so much for being here. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Are you ready for?
Oh yeah.
Are you ready,
Yeah.
Heidi? Is this on? Oh, okay. It didn't sound like it was. So I guess we have time for Q&A.
Yeah.
And I neglected to say hello to the people who are online. I know we have a good 7 or 8 people. Oh, everybody wave at the camera. So thank you for joining us online. I can come around with the microphone if you put your hands up and I come up with some questions. I know one question I had was, what was the website again that you and your son created?
Oh, it's called Bare Bones Cooking, and it's posted on my website.
Bare Bones.
Bare
Bare
bones cooking.
Bones.
Yeah,
Cooking.
because it's simple techniques. And once you begin to really understand those techniques, or just do them a couple times, you can cook almost anything. It kind of unlocks and simplifies the process.
So it's a cooking class.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But it's also, it's got a portal where you can post questions, or it's interactive as well. It's we're just now we went back and re-edited some things, so it's not quite up yet, but if you go on the website, you'll get updates.
Okay.
Yeah. And I also have a Substack. If anybody wants more stories about cooking and stuff, you can sign up for this Substack. It's free. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Audience, it's up to you.
Yeah. Questions? Yes. Hi.
We're going to put it in the microphone so that the people online can hear us.
Thanks. That was really beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to hear more about what you've learned or imagined about your ancestors and their cooking and their relationship with root cellars.
Yeah.
And other things.
Thank you for asking that. It's been really fun. I think, again, it's another lesson in how people learn from each other, just their experience, and how they almost, they teach themselves too, just by doing, because I'm quite sure there were a lot of things those great aunties didn't know until they had to figure it out. And that's one of the things I think my kids are figuring out, that it's trial and error, and you can't really go terribly wrong. I mean, maybe if the stuff blows up, that that could be a problem. But again, and this was another lesson from some of the indigenous people I've cooked with, is if you follow them around, you go with them foraging, everything everything near them is food, right? They pay such close attention to what's coming out of the ground, whether it's mushrooms or greens or flowers or, all these incredible things. And a lot, I said to my one friend, Brian Yazzie, like, how do you know what? And he goes, well, if I haven't learned from an elder, I taste it. And if it doesn't taste good, I spit it out. I mean, I never take a huge bite of it, but, and it's just kind of, I think we're so removed from our senses that we don't smell, touch, taste things. And that's what infants do. They sort of have an innate sense of what it is they want. Yeah. Thanks. More questions? Yeah.
Just a request for book recommendation.
Oh, yeah.
About the chemistry of cooking.
Yeah.
And for example, like, well, if I put a little bit of what's that starch? Cornstarch. If I put a little bit of cornstarch in this, or if I add a little bit of sugar, how's that going to combine with
Yeah.
this other thing? And yeah,
Yeah, Harold McGee he's got a couple of really good books. I think his big book is called Food and Science. Yes. It's really good. And then there are lots of things on the internet too. If you Google, if you have a specific question you want to, I mean, his book is really good for reading through and he explains a lot of things. But if you want a quick answer, frankly, I've answered a lot of those questions just by Googling the question. Yeah. Harold McGee, McGee. Yeah. No, it's a great question because knowing how things react without having too many failures is always a good idea too. And substitution also references like Joy of Cooking have indexes in the back, and the same thing with Michael Pollan, not Michael Pollan. Mark Bittman's How to Cook Everything. He's got graphs and charts and things like that, and that can be really helpful too. It's helpful for conversions as well. Like how long does it take to cook 2 pounds of whatever, polenta or something like that. Yeah, yeah, he's really good. Yeah. Questions? Yeah. Answers. Any answers? Yeah.
Hi, I have a question.
Yes.
I had a garden for 20 years, a big vegetable garden, and I live in an apartment.
Yeah.
Are there allocations? Are there?
Yes, there are. There are a lot of community gardens. If you Google Food Council, if you go onto the Minneapolis website,
Yeah.
and city website and look for Food Council, and then community gardens should pop up, and they'll tell you where they are. So find one in your area, and then you can sign up and get a plot.
Okay.
They're super fun.
Cool.
Yeah, and you can also, if you don't want to grow tons of stuff, they also have like shared gardens. So you can share, like, if the plots are too big, because it's amazing how much you can grow out of a very small plot. Yeah, it's amazing. So yeah, and there are all kinds of seed swaps and things like that. In many cases, the seeds are free. So yeah, it's fun. It's really fun. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
If I could just put a plug in for our little garden here at church.
nice.
And then there's the one at Hallie Q. Brown. And
Nice.
there are lots of ways that if you don't want to grow a whole bunch of food for yourself, you could help some of the rest of us out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So what are your favorite dishes to cook?
Oh my.
And do you, top 3 maybe? And then is there something that you want to cook, something aspirational that you don't ever get around to? For me, it's I bake a lot and I want to make a croquembouche, and I've made a couple attempts at it, but I haven't really pulled it off yet.
Yeah, you will. Keep trying. No, seriously. Yeah. Do you know how to make? Yeah, I bet you do. Yeah. Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
The other one. What's
Yes.
it called?
Exactly. Yeah.
So, Beth, this is not a commercial.
Yes.
Evergreen, but given that Act for the Earth is sponsoring this, I would love for you to say a little bit about your work cultivating the community around crops that are trying to return health to the land, and that there is something about working with novel ingredients, and you are sort of a pioneer and explorer on novel crops. And if you could say a little bit about your work to bring some of those forward.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to answer his question first, though, because I'm thinking hard about what my favorite recipe is. And I haven't mastered. I'm a terrible baker, I have to tell you. I'm way too impatient. So, and I'm not much of a scientist. So I'm much better at tinkering with things, and you can't tinker with pastry, right? It's very precise. So I give you a lot of credit for even the desire to attempt to do that. So I'm sure you've had many splendid failures in your mind, but they probably taste pretty good. So to me, that's a win. To be honest, I like everything so much, I can't really identify one dish that I really, really, really love. I'm working with a chef right now at Nixta, which is the Mexican restaurant in North Minneapolis, Oro, and I mean, their food is so complicated. Like, I would love to be able to master a really good mole. I don't know if I ever will. I think you have to grow up with, several generations of mole masters to do that. But things like that. Yeah, yeah. But thanks. But thank you, Anne, for asking about. No, that's okay. Thanks for asking about the work of Forever Green. It's, I'm going to tell it from my own personal perspective. So I've been writing a lot about, the heartland, storytelling about the heartland and about what grows here and about our history with food here. And that resulted in the first book that precedes In Summer's Kitchen, which is called In Winter's Kitchen, which was how coming here from New Jersey and getting to know our local farmers and farmers markets helped me really create a home, because I didn't know anybody. And by going to the farmers markets and talking with the farmers and getting to know the restaurant cooks and going to the Wedge Co-op and things like that really helped me feel as though I belonged someplace. And what I learned from them was not only how, why their food was so good, but all of the good that food did for the environment, our communities, our health, good food access for our communities, all of that. I mean, it touches so many different points. So in the work that I did for In Winter's Kitchen, I did a deep dive into wheat, into the history of wheat, into the story of wheat, and how wheat really is the engine that built these cities, the economic engine. And then I read about how devastating growing commercial wheat is to the land. It's a long story about Norman Borlaug and about hybridizing wheat and the impact growing that wheat has on the land. And I met a researcher, Dr. Jarrett, Abdullah Jaradat, down at the University of Minnesota Morris, who's a wheat researcher. He's Iranian, and he was a really good baker, but he had a mild wheat allergy, and he found that eating some of the ancient strains of wheat didn't make him feel ill, and he really got interested in, what that might mean. And then, I came across another article, another obscure article about Don Wise, the founder of Forever Green Initiative, who was trying to understand how to grow a grain like wheat that could be milled and used as a food crop, but also that could repair a lot of the damage on the land and could earn farmers money. Because Don understood that you can't ask farmers who are business people to change how they grow things without giving them something else to grow. And so Don was he came here as a grass researcher, did a lot of work with the farmers up in Roseau, Minnesota, and he began to understand that you could hybridize wheat. He connected with Wes Jackson. Are you guys familiar with that guy's name? At the Land Institute, right? Who was also working on a grain called Kernza, which is a intermediate wheatgrass, which grows like grass, but can be harvested and milled like wheat and, create a flour. And so I got really interested in that. And then through Don, I became more familiar with the work that Forever Green Initiative does, because there's this whole suite of crops, 15 crops now, that they're working on. Things like elderberries, if anybody remembers the rush to get elderberry syrups and cough syrups and pills and things like that, because they're so high in antioxidants. They're really good for us. They are, they're so beneficial for not only us, but for the land. And they're probably one of the most nutritious berries on the planet. But they also capture, water. They retain topsoil. They shelter pollinators. Their flowers can be brewed into what's the liqueur? Germaine. Thank you. Yes, exactly. That's pretty good for your brain cells too. But anyway, So the elderberries is in that suite of crops. So are hazelnuts, which are amazing. There's a lot of stories about hazelnuts. And the really cool thing about hazelnuts, again, getting into another story about hazelnuts, hazelnuts in Ireland are considered the nut of wisdom. Um, and the hazelnut tree is highly revered there. There's a lot of mythology, Irish mythology about hazelnuts. So, I mean, all of that fascinates me. And to also know that these crops not only have all these fabulous ecological services for our environment, but they're nutritious and they can help us change, they can help our farmers change how they're growing food. So another really interesting crop is called camelina, which is a beautiful crop. That it's a yellow flower. It's fabulous, and it's a really good culinary oil. It needs a lot of processing, but once it is processed, it can be heated to 425 degrees, which is the highest of any culinary oils. And the implications for that is that you can flash fry things really quickly, and and whatever you're frying is not going to absorb that much of the oil. It's very high in antioxidants. It's also high in omega-3s, and it's a great jet fuel oil. So not too long ago, there was a jet that flew from University of Minnesota, camelina oil, from MSP Airport to JFK. Yeah. So, there's all kinds of cool stuff like that going on. So, I mean, to me, that gives me hopeful. Maybe I'm just trying too hard to feel hopeful about what's going on right now. But I will, if it tastes good and it makes me feel hopeful, I'm all over it. If it tastes good, oh, camelina. Camelina, Camilina. Yeah. So yeah, it's beautiful. And we will be, they use it in Sweden and it grows in Canada. And they also use it in Italy, but we haven't seen it here. You can order camelina oil from a processor in Canada under For Farmers, I think is the label. And it's quite good. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, any other questions?
Well, I had one more.
Yeah, thank you.
I've always admired your work with Indigenous people, of course. You
Mhm.
co-wrote the cookbook with Sean Sherman. But you've also worked with some of our immigrant communities.
Yes.
And had very close relationships there. Would you want to say something more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really easy and it's really fun, I mean, I'm good friends with Ia Vang, and I do some work with the Good Acre, which is a farmer support organization. Actually, it's a food hub. Oh, yay! Is that where you guys get your food? Yay! Oh, I love it. That's wonderful. Yes, I will. It's called The Good Acre, right? Oh, okay. So those fabulous parsnips, and thank you for using parsnips because they are my all-time favorite root vegetable. They're great. And the cool thing about parsnips, like carrots, is that they actually taste better after some storage because those carbohydrates convert to sugar over time, right? So, and thank you for sourcing them from the Good Acre because they work with um, indigenous and brown and black farmers to grow food and help those farmers find markets for the stuff they're growing. It's a food hub, so they aggregate that food and get it ready to distribute to places, and that allows them to have more markets than just going to the farmers market. So they're able to really, become businesses that way. And the Good Acre also provides all kinds of services to the farmers, like banking services and business, brainstorming and stuff like that. Yeah, they're great. They're just great. So yeah. So anyway, it's through that kind of work. If you get to know the farmers, I mean, many of our immigrant communities come from farming cultures, and they're really good farmers. And so it's been fun to learn from them. And I've learned so much just by going to the farmers market, for instance, and buying from the Hmong and the Mexican and the Guatemalan and Somali farmers, and just saying, well, what do you do? Ethiopian farmers, what do you do with it? I mean, what is it and what do you do with it? And they'll tell you, and it's great. Yeah. So.
So that's where it started.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very cool.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Hi, George.
Hi, Beth. Just a question.
Yeah.
Quick comment. I think you may have known Dave and Florence Minar.
Yes. Oh God, they were fabulous.
Wasn't
Yeah.
that cream? Their
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
whipping cream was to
Yeah.
die for.
Amazing. It was just, it was just, it was so good. It was so good. And I was so sad when they
I know.
stopped farming. It was really sad.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
a story I wanted to just mention
Yeah.
is that, I mean, they grew dairy, but it was all grass-fed
Yeah.
dairy,
Yeah.
so no corn.
Yeah.
And oh, sorry, it was all grass-fed dairy, no corn.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they would relay, it's an anecdote, is that when people would buy their whole milk, they would say, like the story with Abdullah Jaradat,
Yeah.
oh, my allergy or my lactose intolerance
Yeah.
even was less. So
But they could have the cream. I know. I mean, I think, I mean, you know this too. Science is finally showing that the health of the soil directly impacts the food that we eat, right? And so there's a huge difference between a commercial egg, for instance, that is in a CAFO factory and one that's raised with a lot of care and allowed to run outside and, to eat food and stuff and eating food that is grown in good soil. We know that. We also know that the produce that we're eating right now from commercial farms in Florida and California has 40% fewer nutrients in it than it did 40 years ago. I mean, we know that. Yeah, it's a lot. We've lost 40%. Yeah. And it has to do with the quality of the soil, right? And so you have to believe that, it was the breed of the cows, right? And I can't remember, what were they raising? Were they her? I think they were Jersey cows. I'm pretty sure they were Jersey. Yeah, they were Jerseys, which is a smaller cow. Cows are super healthy, right? And that milk was, yeah, and that milk was small batch process. And there are 3 different ways to process milk. I mean, you have to process it under law. It probably was even better when they drank it themselves without processing it, right? But there's low temperature processing, right, which retains some of the beneficial bacteria, not much, but some, a healthy level of the beneficial bacteria. Then there's the next heat, right, which pretty much kills everything. And then there's ultra processing, which kills it all. And so you're getting more nutrients and you're probably getting a better balance of nutrients from that. And, what's interesting is I'm trying to, I know of people that can drink raw milk that can't drink processed milk. And they're saying it's because when you process that milk and destroy that bacteria, the it's the proteins and without the bacteria flush into your gut far faster, so your body is forced to absorb that milk more quickly. Whereas if with the natural bacteria and a better balance of bacteria, that the digestive system absorbs it more slowly. So it may be some of that too, maybe a lot of those factors, and we really don't know. It's kind of like the gluten thing, right? I mean, we know that the Borlig wheat, which is the modern wheat, which grows, I want to say 97 or 98% of the wheat that is grown in the United States, even if it's organic, is this modern wheat, which was hybridized to grow short because it could be fertilized quickly, right? And wheat researcher will tell you it's pretty lazy. It needs a lot of chemicals. It needs fertilizers and pesticides and things like that to grow. But because it's been trained to grow a certain height and because it's been trained to produce a certain size berry, and because it's sprayed with glyphosate right before it's harvested to make those berries bolt, so you get really big berries, all the same size, all at the same time. It makes the harvesting and the processing really easy. The other thing that happens with that wheat is that it's processed at very high heat. We don't know the impact that has on the nutrients of it. The barrels that it's in are sprayed with roticide, and then that wheat is often bleached after it's milled to keep it, quote, fresh on the shelf. And so you're really just not eating much if you're using that kind of wheat. And that may explain why people that eat Bakersfield flour and bread, for instance, that is not, it's, wheat that's primarily organically grown or grown mostly without chemicals. It's not treated to any of that. It's milled fresh, and it's baked using sourdough as the leavener, which they also have begun to believe that sourdough has beneficial impact on your gut, that many people don't suffer from that, from the sensitivity they have to those breads. So we don't know, but we know there are a number of factors that could be creating problems. The other thing I think that's happening with the whole gluten thing is that all commercial bakeries practically, unless they're sourdough bakeries, use something called vital gluten, which is the extract of gluten, which is a protein that's used to make for consistent rise. And that's in just about any commercial baked good. And so as a species, we are eating more gluten now than we ever have before because it's in everything. It's in salad dressings, it's in hamburgers, it's in, it's in everything. So our systems, I think, are overloaded with it, which is why we become sensitive to things like baguettes. So anyway, yeah. Yes. Yes, to like McDonald's hamburgers, to commercial things, yeah. Because it holds them together. It's a binder. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, any other good news?
So you mentioned the Wedge Co-op, and I've been a co-op shopper since I was in college, and I also am a co-op tourist. So when I go
Lovely, that's
somewhere
great.
else in the U.S., I
Yeah.
always see what their co-op is like.
Yeah.
And I've really noticed that we have so many more food co-ops than almost any other city I've ever been in the United States. Why is that? How are they doing? How can we?
I love this
support
question.
them?
This is great. This is a great question. Okay, there are a couple of reasons. We have one of the first co-ops in the country. And it started as People's Pantry, I think it was called, on the porch of a university professor's house as a buying club. And that was right around the time that Rachel Carson blew the whistle around, Silent Spring, around the, the Alar scare and the fact that, moms all of a sudden got hip to the fact that apple juice could be kind of dangerous because it was loaded with all these chemicals. And so there was a big outcry for what wasn't even considered or called organic food at the time because there was no standard for it, but people wanted food that hadn't been treated with chemicals. At the same time, while, around a lot of the country where it was possible, the farms were getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and there was more corn growing and more of these commodity crops. But in the driftless area of Wisconsin, there were a number of those small farmers that had always farmed without chemicals because they had to grow on smaller plots. And so they'd never used chemicals, and they were family farms. They connected with People's Pantry, and that's where a lot of those vegetables were coming from. That grew into the co-op movement, and it happened pretty quickly, and it happened more quickly than it did in other states. And so as a result, we have more co-ops than any place else. Yeah. I think it also speaks to just our culture in general, because the Scandinavian culture tends to be very collective. We had the first farmers union, for instance. We had the first co-op banks, actually Land O'Lakes is a co-op. So we've always been very sort of collective. It's almost like a cultural thing, I think, as well. Yeah. So, in fact, Mark Ritchie, our former Secretary of State, will tell you anybody who got involved in politics probably worked in a co-op in the 60s, right? It's probably true. Yeah, it's true. Because I remember being at the co-op, when we first moved here, and at that time, you could earn off your $40 membership fee by volunteer hours, right? And it was great because you really got to learn about where the food was coming from. Yeah, it was fun. Yeah. Well, you guys have been so great. I don't want to keep you any longer. Yeah, Heidi, do you have a question? Yeah.
I actually have someone online.
Oh.
Let me just get this here. One moment, please, while I find my right tab. Here we go. So Cindy Ross, some of you might remember her from the Sustainable Living team. So that was before the Act for the Earth team.
Precursor.
She says, thanks for the Zoom link. I'm out here on the Olympic Peninsula.
Ooh.
Used to be on the Sustainable Ag Ministry group and bought food for Wellspring Wednesday from the St. Paul Farmers Market. Then she says, we're developing our own local wheat varieties out here.
Ooh.
I'm growing a unique variety from Nash Huber. I just wanted to share that.
Well, that's great. Tell her thank you. That's wonderful. That's great.
You can tell her she's
thank-
watching.
Well, there's a bread lab at Washington State, which is doing a lot of work, and they're also doing a lot of work on these perennial strains of wheat, which is really interesting. Yeah, there's a lot going on. I think one of the things is we hear about all the bad stuff that's going on too. This doesn't get covered, which is one of the reasons why I wrote that book, Perennial Kitchen. Is just I just want it's so easy, and I almost feel as though it's kind of as though these evil forces want us not to connect, and they want us to believe that we're doomed, but we're not. There's a lot of good stuff going on, and so hang on to that. Yeah, keep cooking. Yeah. Keep getting together. Eat good food. Eat those parsnips. Go find some parsnips. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. It was a pleasure having dinner with you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you all for coming. If anybody has further questions, can we forward them to you? Oh,
thank you. Whoops. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Here, she's okay. All right. I'm really excited. And your lovely Ann Kirby is helping me with this. On March 24th, we're doing a launch of a book that a number of people I work with at Forever Green, and also a wonderful poet, Gwendolyn, and Colin Curitan, and me, and who am I missing? Oh, Rahi. Do you guys ever buy Peace Coffee? Okay, so Rahi founded that company. He now created the company called Tree Range Chicken. And yes, it's fabulous. Yes, I love it, Heidi. You're into it. Yes, that's awesome. That's so great. He works with a number of immigrant farmers to raise chicken, and the name of that organization, it's a farmer co-op. It's called Regenerative Agriculture, and it's RAA. You can find them online, or just Google Rahi and he'll pop up. Anyway, he's great. He talks a lot about respecting the chickenness of the chicken. And I know this is a vegan thing, but the book is called Living Roots, and I have an essay in it. So does the researcher Colin, so does the poet Gwen, so does Rahi. He's amazing. And the book launch is March 24th. And there will be food and celebration and readings, and it's being moderated by two incredible women from the Land Institute who have been editors on the book. So one of them is the author of Lentil Underground, which I highly recommend as a book. It's great. It's a great book. Yeah. So, and it's on perennial agriculture. Yeah, the essays are all about perennializing our lives, really. Perennializing, and again, understanding how soil works and understanding how things grow as a metaphor for how we relate to each other. So it's called Living Roots. Yeah, it's a collection of essays. It's a collection of essays by a lot of people that are engaged in this work from all different professions. So they're researchers and agronomists and farmers and poets and artists. And it's just a wonderful, look into how everybody is collaborating around this, much the way that our soil works. I mean, soil is really about collaboration, right?
Anna, it sounds
Oh, I'm
like
sorry. It's an open book. It's an open book in downtown Minneapolis on Washington Avenue. Thank you for asking. Yeah.
And Anna, maybe you could coordinate with the book stall team to see if we can get some of those books here.
That'd be great.
I'm beginning to think that just as the fungi mycorrhizae hold the world together underground where we can't see it, you are a human fungus. You have roots and fingers in every aspect of food. I'm going to ask one last quick question because Act for the Earth was encouraging people to consider vegan cooking this month in honor of Veganuary. And we're not telling people you have to give up everything all the time, but, explore this as a possibility. Do you have anything you want to say about that? Maybe a favorite recipe would be good.
Well, first of all, we need to know and celebrate the fact that we in this area, including the Dakotas, provide the country with something like, I want to say 60, maybe 70% of our dried beans. And that's a fabulous source of protein, really great source of protein. Yeah, I think it's 60, 70. Do you know, George? It's a lot. It's a big percentage. Of beans. And the other thing is that beans, again, are another fabulous crop because they are great nitrogen fixers, so they're great for the soil. And they're really good for us. And there's a wonderful book called Cool Beans that's nothing but bean recipes. Yeah, it's just great. And we have a lot of really good small bean growers that show up at our farmers markets, especially in the wintertime. So if you shop the St. Paul Farmers Market or you get over to Mill City, there are a couple of really good mung growers that have dried beans, and they're fabulous beans. The other thing is the fresher the bean, the quicker it cooks. So don't be afraid to cook beans. Fresh beans are so much better than the canned beans. I mean, I use canned beans in a pinch, but the fresh beans are great. So, and it's an oxymoron. So that's great. Soups, stews, things like that. I mean, we often don't eat meat or don't eat any sort of animal food, and it's really not that hard. There's so many good substitutes right now. I would caution against eating a lot of those like Impossible Burger and that stuff. They're just fake, and they're in plastic, and the amount of energy it takes to make those things is probably reversing our attempts to try and do something good, because they're not going to make CAFOs go away. What's going to make CAFOs go away is people eating real food, right? And it's expensive. Yeah, and it doesn't taste very good. They taste weird. Yeah. Yeah, ultra processed. I mean, it's the ultra processed stuff that's killing us. So anyway, so just eat good food, not much, mostly plants.
Thank you, Michael Pollan. Yeah. And thank you, Beth. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank the audience online and here in person for showing up. Appreciate it. You're welcome.